Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. You get yourself one of these handsome Juxtaposition 1 coffee cups. See the link below to send money to my P.O. box for one of those Kraken cups, Kraken mugs. You can put your favorite coffee brew in here or Scotch whiskey or vodka, whatever adult beverage you prefer. All right, so today's video will be entitled Nobel Laureate Academy Awards because people who are awarded or bestowed Nobel Prizes are actors. They're actors on the stage of the clown show sponsored by Swiss Bank Authority and Swiss Anthropology. You always have to have your high priests to give out the message to the flock that comes into temple, your temple worshipers. And that's what we have with the racket known as the Nobel Prize. Just like the Academy Awards, they have different categories. You got a peace category. Obama, I think, won a peace prize for Nobel, uh, named after Alfred Nobel, I believe. Um, they have a category for chemistry and CRISPR Therapeutics. They gave an award to Jennifer Doudna for her. She wasn't even born when CRISPR Therapeutics was conceived. I don't think Alfred Nobel was born yet either. Um, in 1865, the International Telecommunications Union in Paris and Geneva were well aware of using radiation poisoning to influence human beings. And Jennifer Doudna was not born until 1961, so she couldn't have possibly created CRISPR Therapeutics because she wasn't even in her parents' mindset since her parents hadn't been born yet. All right. So my point is that it's just a Academy Awards presentation. Best actor for film, television, best television series, best singer, best theatrical stage actress. So we have all these different awards: Go- Golden Globe Award, and we have the Tony Award, and we have the Academy Awards for film and film stars. So they've got television, they've got music awards, they've got peace prizes, they got scientists, PhD. They give awards to themselves. And we're going to focus on a number of pseudo Americans, Paul Krugman and Ben Bernanke, who was Fed chairman for a few years, and my favorite of all time, Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman is a fraud. He's a Jew from Brooklyn. His parents did not go to college. They're Hungarian Jew immigrants in Brooklyn. And there's no shortages of frauds that come from Brooklyn. You know, like Alan Dershowitz. He's a fraud, friend of Jeffrey Epstein, New York Jews who rose to infamy. Infamy. Alan Dershowitz, he was involved with the O.J. Simpson case, was he not? He didn't really have much of a role other than television. He was the talking head on TV, very unethical. But anyway, Milton Friedman lived to age 94. He died November 16th, 2008. He wrote a number of books. Um, he is associated with three universities: Rutgers University for his BA, University of Chicago for his master's, and then Columbia University in New York for his PhD. And he was set out to be involved with actuarial numbers and such, but he got sidetracked over to social engineering and monetary policy, rates of unemployment, money supply, monetary policy, privatization, so-called interference by governments, and promoting the idea of freedom and deregulation. These are poppycock, ridiculous terms. Milton Friedman served as an advisor to a pseudo president who has a Screen Actors Guild star on Hollywood Boulevard, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is a actor in Hollywood, and guess what? So is Milton Friedman. He's an actor at University of Chicago, and later for Stanford University at the Hoover Institute, where Milton Friedman was bestowed the title of fellow, as a conservative Republican economist who had retired from the University of Chicago in 1977, where he won his Nobel Prize and immediately was hired as a paid gig to be a fellow at the Hoover Institute. And he moved out from Chicago to San Francisco, where he then joined the other criminals in that organization, like Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, and later Condoleezza Rice and Victor Davis Hanson, joining the mafioso cult in Palo Alto at Stanford, which comes with a free house too. You get a house, and I think you get a limo service also. Um, anyway, what I wanted to tell you is he wrote a number of books. His most infamous book, which is a complete fraudulent book, which is befitting of a winner of a Nobel Prize. They only hire people who are bald-faced, pathological liars. You cannot get a Nobel Prize unless you pretend to be an intelligent person, which of course you're not. And number two is you promote and pimp out Swiss bank authority concealment programs. And certainly this is true of Milton Friedman. His first book, Capitalism and Freedom, which inspired a series of lectures that he gave at Wabash College. This brought him national and international attention outside of his cloistered world of academia. The book Capitalism and Freedom, of course, was published by his employer, University of Chicago Press, and it was published in 1962. It consists of a series of essays that use non-mathematical economic models to explore the principles of public policy. Allegedly, because this is probably an unaudited, inaccurate number, is Milton Friedman's Capitalism and Freedom sold 400,000 copies in its first 18 years, and then more than 500,000 copies since 1962. Okay, well, I definitely do not agree with that, and only if the CIA bought the book, kind of like Bob Woodward, his books. Nobody buys Bob Woodward books other than the CIA or NATO intelligence officers. Anyway, the book Capitalism and Freedom is a mendacity because there's no such thing as capitalism on this earth. And number two is no such thing as freedom on this earth. Later, I was hoodwinked and fell for the potato in a tailpipe when I purchased the book Free to Choose that was written around the time that Ronald Reagan was going to run for president. We had this idiotic book called Free to Choose, which I bought a copy of with my hard-earned money. That's a poppycock book, Free to Choose. It was pimped out and promoted by the public broadcasting services, which is home to the Tucker Carlson's father, Dick Carlson, Richard Carlson. He was the voice of public radio. He was also a State Department ambassador, and he was working for the CIA, and that's who Tucker Carlson is. He is a Swiss-educated all-boys academy of Geneva, Switzerland, and he went to the Birmingham Academy in Encino, and he went to Swiss schools for high school. And Tucker Carlson is a fraud. His father, Dick Carlson, is a fraud. Public broadcasting services, they're a fraudulent entity for Switzerland. And that makes Milton Friedman a fraud because it was public PBS who pimped out the 1980 published version of Free to Choose, which Juxtaposition foolishly bought. Free to Choose. There's no freedom, right? If they build it, if you build it, they will come. This is a Swiss bank concept that you have to build out the databases first. Remember during the economic depression of 1929, October 1929, when banks failed, which of course in real life is impossible for a bank to fail. But anyway, we have this concept that banks were closed and you couldn't get your money. So we had that. We had runs on banks. We had the loss of confidence of banking. So what does Switzerland do when the United States is insolvent and bankrupt, essentially, effectively bankrupt? We don't call it that. We call it insolvency. So we build the Golden Gate Bridge. We build the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge. We build the Tennessee Valley Authority in the Appalachian Mountains. We build the Hoover Dam. Back then it was called the Boulder Dam there in Nevada to create Lake Mead, built Lake Powell. Uh, we built the dam that created Lake Powell. Uh, we built many, many military bases when we had no money and no banks. Built the Empire State Building in about 13 months. Empire State Building, bang that up real quick like a bunny rabbit with no tenants. We still built it. It's like a giant obelisk in Manhattan, New York. The Empire State Building, the world's tallest building, was built when America was insolvent. You find that preposterous? Did Milton Friedman address this in his Capitalism and Freedom book? Did he address it in Free to Choose? No, he did not. No, he did not. He didn't because he's a cover artist, right? He's a cover artist. He's a fraud. He's fake. So he's not alone. He's a long line. The PhDs in the United States produced at Harvard University, MIT, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, University of California systems, whether it's UCLA or Berkeley in particular, or UC Santa Cruz in the case of Brett Weinstein, for example, and then Stanford University in the case of Victor Davis Hanson, um, or in the case of Henry Kissinger and Daniel Ellsberg, Harvard, is that they churn out those postgraduate degrees, like a cow processing plant turns out hamburger, okay? Or like a pig farming slaughterhouse turns out sausage, pork sausage, and they just churn them out. Historical um, PhDs, chemistry PhDs, electrical engineering PhDs, and economic PhDs. Economic PhDs. Milton Friedman has actually no business experience. He's never run a business, never run a lemonade stand. He's the last person in the world to be talking about economics. He doesn't know anything about it whatsoever. Our economy is actually extremely simple, and it's planned in a conference room, first in Geneva, Switzerland, then Zurich and Zug and Liechtenstein. That's where the world economy is decided. Final approval in Liechtenstein, Switzerland, which is fascist. In other words, it's a fascist banking society. It's fascist. You can't throw a cigarette butt on the street in Switzerland without getting a $250 fine. They have a cleanliness police department that's out 16 hours a day looking for people who litter. So what I wanted to tell you is that Switzerland is fascist, and they are run all the university systems in the world. They run all the banking satellites in the world through a system of octopus tentacles. And Milton Friedman ended up at the University of Chicago for 30 years, but then he moved to San Francisco and immediately was bestowed a Nobel Prize and a job at the Hoover Institute. All right. And you typically do get a free house on the Stanford campus when you are a fellow, which would explain Victor Davis Hanson, not spending much time at his raisin farm in Fresno County in Selma, on Highway 99, which is a 666 Masonic Mark of the Beast raisin farm with aluminum chalk chemtrails dumped all over Victor Davis Hanson's raisins. His shriveled grapes are full of aluminum chalk. Anyway, Ronald Reagan was a Screen Actors Guild actor. He was a publicist for General Electric. He worked for Army Intelligence, Army Airborne Intelligence Officer. He was the president of the Screen Actors Guild for 6.5 terms. He works for the FBI and the military intelligence. And this is who Milton Friedman was an advisor to during the pseudo 8 years of presidency during Reaganomics. Reaganomics is often inextricably linked to Milton Friedman's mendacities, balderdash, and poppycock that rejected Keynesianism in favor of monetary policy, monetization. I got news for you. Milton Friedman, just like Jennifer Doudna, he did not creating money out of nothing. That's been done since the Egyptian pyramids, when they built 118 to 130 pyramids 1,500 years before the Jesus Christ Christianity story started. We had the pyramids built in Egypt. That's over what is that, 3,500 years ago? They were creating money to hire artisans to stack rocks and build four-sided pyramids in the desert and create smart cities where all of these part-time and full-time artisans could live and raise children and families. You do need a water source. You can't have a pyramid unless there's a water source. There must be a water source or you can't build a pyramid. All right, because you need to feed the workers. They need water. If there's no water, there can be no people. All right, there has to be water. All right. You can have a data center when there's no water. You can. You do need electricity. You need solar or wind power or lithium battery power, but you don't need water to run a data center. But you do need water to build a pyramid if you have 100,000 employees and you need 5,000 of them to be working on the pyramid every day. Roughly 5,000 permanent employees is what it takes to build a pyramid, which is going to take 15 to 30 years to build. It's a career or half a career for a person. So anyway, I want you to know that all of these lexicon of terms, policy, vocabulary words having to do with economic sciences, such as price stability, neoclassical, school of economic thought, conservative, monetaryism versus Keynesianism, new classical macroeconomics. These are all balderdash mendacity, meaningless terms. They have no validity in real life. None. It's a theoretical video game. Milton Friedman is just another fraud from Brooklyn, New York. He is one of a long list of frauds from Brooklyn, New York. Anyway, he's an actor. He served Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is a professional actor with the Screen Actors Guild card. Donald Trump is a screen actor with a card carrying screen actor. The Before we had Milton Friedman, we had other economists that won prizes. After him, we had Ben Bernanke, who became Fed chairman. He was in 2022 was bestowed a Nobel Laureate Prize. Paul Krugman in 2008, he's a complete fraud. He is dumber than a box of hammers. Robert Lucas, Eleanor Ostrom, Joseph Stiglitz, these are all Nobel frauds. Nobel Prize laureate, larceny, lunacy, losers. All right, but they do get fancy jobs. And the Nobel Prize named after Albert Nobel, and he's the namesake for this prize that is bestowed in Stockholm and on December of every year. And it's administered by what is called the Nobel Foundation, and laureates are selected by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. So it's a Swedish PSYOPs Academy Award prize, just like winning an Academy Award like George C. Scott or Marlon Brando did for The Godfather and George C. Scott did for the film Patent. This is how we do social engineering in America is we create influencers, right? Like Milton Friedman, who influenced juxtaposition to buy free to choose. When the reality is there are no choices other than what Switzerland and the controllers decide. Yeah, there's small sandbox autonomy, but once you get to the big sandbox and you realize that all of the small businesses like restaurants and and bookstores are going out of business and they're replaced by corporate franchises only in every strategic hamlet of America. Then you realize our economy is controlled, that it's planned out of Geneva and Paris, France, that our economy of the world is fake. It's all decided in a room. And then all of the unemployed people run to whatever jobs are available. So it's building data centers, building airplane parts, military weapons, Apple computer, iPods, pacification and control techniques, Meta, Facebook, Control Labs, Google search, trace track and targeting, flock cameras, smart meters, ring cameras, optogenetics. Those are the jobs that are available. And that's what the kids will go to until they're fired, until they're cast aside, like some builders of the Egyptian pyramids were. Some, allegedly, were thrown in a hole. Now, many were not, and hopefully found work elsewhere. But once the pyramids are built, there is going to be an unemployment problem. You don't have jobs for 100,000 people after you build 130 pyramids. It's kind of like jobs over, right? And when you build, let's say, 10,000 data centers, then what? I guess you just need the operators and parts and replacement people and the refrigeration of people to keep the temperatures low at the data center, which can be done just like you have refrigerated containers at sea. They don't need water. You do not need water to run a data center. You do need electricity and power, whether it's solar power or lithium battery power, or whether it's wind power, turbo prop power, doesn't make any difference. Doesn't have to be water. Does not have to be water. And it could be salt water, doesn't have to be fresh water. It can be any kind of water. Any coolant can work. So, anyway, that's my video for today. I just wanted you to know that we have a number of fraudulent people who have received Nobel Prizes. Barack Obama got one for peace. Jennifer Doudna got one for chemistry and molecular engineering, Frankenstein monstering of your cells, known as gene editing of your DNA. Frankenstein monstering, disabling your tenets of thinking. They gave an award to Jennifer Doudna, and they gave her credit for creating CRISPR Therapeutics, which is absurd because she wasn't even born when that was created. They knew about CRISPR Therapeutics in 1865 when the International Telecommunications Union was established in Paris, France, and then moved to Geneva. ITU, okay? That's knowing that radiation poisoning can influence and affect tenets of thinking of people. They knew that in 1865. And Jennifer Doudna's parents weren't even born in 1865. So how can a woman born in 1961 have created something that was already known, 100 years before she was born? And it's all to do with fake news, fake history, and the fact that Americans don't do any research. They don't look at who decided that California should be populated, so let's have a gold rush, and followed up with the Comstock silver lode. The Comstock lode, the silver rush, which was 3 times more lucrative than the gold rush. But Switzerland is the answer to that question. New Helvetia, that's who discovered gold in California. Johann Sutter, he's a national from Switzerland. He was from Basel, Switzerland. Basel, Switzerland. That's home to the International Settlement, Bank of International Settlements. That's who discovered gold in California, a Swiss national. He's not an American citizen. He was a Swiss national with provisional Mexican citizenship, provisional Mexican citizen. But he was a Swiss national. That's who discovered gold in California. And then we moved 1 million people to California, to which the Spanish had already colonialized through their fascist 21 missions, all of which had barracks for Spanish soldiers. Every Catholic church came with a barracks of military soldiers, and that's Switzerland. And they flew them out here, on the conquistador ships with the Red Cross. The Red Cross is the sign of the Knights of Malta, the signs of the Knights Templar of Geneva, Switzerland, and this is who promoted Spanish colonialism in California. And then they threw the gold rush on top of their Franciscan uh, indoctrination of the local native peoples. That's my video for today. I hope you liked it. Do share my videos because I am heavily shadow banned. And do look into obtaining a juxtaposition mug. You do not need to be a paid member to get this, although I do recommend you get the cup and also become a paid member. My channel works out to it's 19.8 cents per video that you will find in my library. Costs about 19 cents to see me, Juxtaposition, or Chief Inspector Smythe of New Scotland Yard, or my cousin, Professor Inglestein of the Harvard Institute, the Harvard Hoover Institute of Palo Alto, California. Take care now. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.